Hello and welcome to the Tinker Cards video gallery. Today I'm going to work with the ARTplorations stencils and some homemade embossing paste. And the paste I made simply by using some general PVA glue and some talcum powder. Now the advantage to that is that it also gives you a nicely scented card, and depending on the scent of the talcum powder that you're using, and it stays with it even after a couple of days, so that's quite nice. Now I prepared this a while ago, actually yesterday, and I mixed some embossing powder. Not some embossing powder, sorry. I mixed some PVA glue with some talcum powder and about 5 drops of red ink refill. And I am using Stampin' Up colours, so I actually got it matching with the same cardstock. And what you're looking for is sort of like a slightly gooey consistency, as you can see, and just keep mixing it in, really. And I left it overnight, covered it with cling film, and then put my lid on because I wanted a proper seal to prevent it from drying out, really. Hence I put the cling film on first. So that's the texture. You can go probably a little bit thicker, but I didn't want to. I thought this might be okay. But don't go thinner, because if it's going to be any thinner than this, it will run underneath your stencils. So literally PVA glue and talcum powder with a little bit of ink refill for color. So you could add glitter to this, or any other texture things that you could think of, like little beads or whatever. That would be up to you. So I'm just going to leave it plain as is. And here I got one which I did yesterday, and I masked just the one flower off from the stencil and put my embossing paste through, and then I sprinkled it with glitter and then finished it off by just adding some little gems to the center. So that card will be on my blog. And today I'll be working for this demonstration with the stencil Oh My Stars. Now this is the bold florals which I've used for the blossom that I've just shown you. And then I also got a card that I'll be finishing today. I've used the Shutters stencil. Now I'm going to work with red card, so you'll be getting a very similar, just textured effect on the card, similar to the flower here. So it sort of like blends in. It's more like a lighter shape popping up out of the card, same sort of coloring, so you can't go wrong with that. I'm not going to do all of the stencil. So what I'm trying to do is just to have it smooth it out into a couple of things, so that one corner isn't going to be shouldn't have any on, or so that it just fades out. And I'm going to use like some old sort of card here to do that. It's not a credit card or whatever, so you just sort of smooth it out. So I'm going to pop my paste on, and then I'll be turning the stencil around because I'm better pulling towards myself rather than pulling away from myself. So right, so I'm just going to pop a little bit of paste straight on, and I haven't got my paper on top of the craft of the mat today because it's going to be really messy. I did do that yesterday, and it will just be so much easier to wipe off just from the crafting mat. But I got it underneath, so that I got a little bit of a sort of an area to give, which gives a more depth for the paste to go into. So on a very flat surface, yeah, you got more resistance, but you might not get quite the same effect. So I've taped my stencil, my card to my stencil, And now I'm going to turn it round. And here we go. So I'm just going to do this. Oh, it's probably going to go all over. Yeah, so it's going to be an all over card. Never mind. Not quite what I initially intended. There we go. That should be it. Yeah, the corners here, they'll be a little bit less, which is fine. This goes back into my pot here. Now you might find that actually that your card is sort of warps a little bit when you remove the stencil. It will dry relatively flat, so that's the good thing about it. So I'm just going to lift it up and remove my stencil. So as you can see, you got a little bit of dimply bits there, but that's fine because I didn't want a very smooth a very smooth finish. Now what's happened here, because my card was slightly bowed, it actually went slightly underneath, so, but it's in a corner that I'll be covering with something anyway, so you must make sure that your stencil is absolutely straight on, and then just ideally do it in one go. But I'll be covering this corner anyway, so that's not a problem for me. It's only ever really more or less like this third time that I've done this, and it does take a little bit of getting used to until you know what I don't want to say what pressure apply, but sort of how to, at what angle to hold your card, and or your palette knife if you got one, and then sort of how quickly to smooth it over. So I'm just going to put this now on the radiator, and it's something that I won't be finishing on camera, but it's already starting to dry. As you can see, the color goes a little lighter, so I'll be wiping my space clean in a minute. Just get this off. So again, to recapture, make sure that your card is absolutely smooth and your stencil sits on it properly. I didn't do that here, and hence I got the little smudges where it went underneath, but the rest of it is fine, so I can still use it. Now let me just get this mess out of the way for a moment. So actually making a sort of using an embossing paste that matches your cardstock is quite fun, because you get a sort of a really almost like an embossed effect, but without having to get your heat tool out, and you can sand it down and add some more colour to it later on as well, so by spraying something on and stuff. So let me just wipe this off. That's where it's getting a little bit messy when you use stencils like this. With embossing paste, you've just got to get cleaning quite quickly, because otherwise it sets and it's even messier then. So right, let's turn that round, and another baby wipe. So what would we have done without baby wipes? Let's just wipe this off. So here we go. So that's it, and as you can see, it wipes off really well, and the PV sort of actually having glue in it isn't a problem really. So that's that. Let me just wipe over here. Okay, so I must be careful there. Just pop that away and just see. Now this is where I wished I had a piece of kitchen roll here, but I've got an old piece here. Just okay. Let me just dry this off, and then we can continue. So Right, yeah, this is a little bit more messy than what I normally do, and it does take some getting used to it for me. As messy but untidy messy as I am, I'm not really one for being wet messy, if that makes sense to you. So, but I thought it's quite a fun thing to try, and you can sort of, as I said, sprinkle it with glitter or put some other things on it, which make it a really nice, easy, and actually a very inexpensive option for adding dimension. So I thought some homemade embossing paste would be quite nice, because if it saves you pennies, then you can have more pennies to spend on your stencils and other goodies. Now here is one that I made with the shutter stencil, and that's my base card for it to go on. Now this was really absolutely bent, and it's dried quite well and quite straight, so that is really good to go on a card. So it's just which way round. I think I'll do that way round. And I got a little sentiment here. So I'm not going to do much with this one. All I want to do is have like a little sentiment and just a slight grey border around it. That's all I'm going for. And do I want that to go across? No, I think I'll just pop that sort of down to one side. So let me just cut this down. So because the shutter itself is quite nice, and then you got a sort of almost like quite a bit of natural shading with the homemade embossing paste, that it doesn't need much. And I've got some nice bright and colourful little hearts and stars, which I'm going to pop on there. So this will be done, finished off quite quickly. So I've got to stick that on. Let me just get some glue to do that. So that is here. Right, so I'm not going to entirely center my sentiment. I'm going to have a slightly wider margin either end, as for a little bit of added interest, really. So it's not going to be absolutely symmetrical in a way. Well, it is symmetrical, but not all around. Right, come on. So we got that, and that goes somewhere on here. Now this, I think I'm just going to stick down directly onto my card. I know I probably could have used a grey base card, but I'm going to put some faux stitching around the edges. Okay, so let me get that glue on here. So I quite like it the way sort of the card is matching my embossing paste here. And of course it does smell very nicely of imperial leather, because that's the one that I used, the talcum powder. So this just is going to sit here in a bit. So first I'm going to get my dark grey pen, our marker, and add some faux stitching. Just bear with me a moment. Apologies, I should have got that one out earlier. So just quickly pop some faux stitching on here. Right, and the last one. Right, that's that. So I got this here. I'm just going to, I think I stick this on flat, so it's going to be a nice easy postage one. And it's going to go about here. That's that. And now I've got some really nice stinky little sort of hearts and stuff here, which I got from the pound shop, and I found them in the nail accessories section, actually, of all places. And what shall I put on there? Let's try and see what the gold would look like. Just a couple of little golden stars. These little cute tiny things would go quite nicely with the shutters stencil. And pop them on the red. I think they look rather nice, and just sort of sprinkle them across, really. So I think something like that would be quite nice. Yeah, let's leave it like that. And I think that would be a really nice and easy card to make also relatively quick if you don't mind the drying time, because it does take a little while for the paste to dry. But once it's dry, it's really very quickly assembled and ready to go. So I'm just going to move those little stars across now onto my little glue dots, and then I have to wait for them to dry before I can take a picture and it can all go onto the block. Oops, I've forgotten one, so I've got to get some glue out again. Right, they should all dry clear, and so it's not quite as visible, the glue dots, but I do like to give them a relatively generous helping of glue, because I would hate for them to fall off in the post and then not be on what's for the recipient to see where they were. Right, so that's the card ready. Of course, you could add some more bits, sort of do some doodling in between if you'd wanted to, sort of just highlight some of the edges, but I'm not going to be quite as adventurous tonight. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I shall be back soon with more inspiration for you. So just as a recap before I go, to make your own embossing paste, all you need is some PVA glue and some talcum powder, and you're ready to go. Thank you for watching. Back soon. Bye.